Hello, this is Mr. Huff, and I want to go over the Astronomy Semester 1 study guide very quickly. Give you some tips about possible answers and places to go look. One of the things you need to do is go back and look at Unit 1 and find the slide that talks about the periods of astronomy through history. So be able to recognize when and what occurred in each of the periods, and I believe there's 4. But you need to be familiar with those. All right, who was the first to observe the phases of Venus? If you go back and look at the history of that, the first person who did that was Galileo with the telescope. And he made some deductions from that observation. So who's considered the founder of modern astronomy? That's going to be Nicholas Copernicus, who had the radical idea that the sun was the center of the solar system, not the Earth. Who thought that the Earth was in the middle, geocentric, who came up with that theory? That was Ptolemy that came up with that. It says on the study guide that you're going to have to calculate the force of gravity, and we're not going to do that, so don't worry about any math on this test. Who discovered elliptical orbits of the planets? That was Johannes Kepler, and we talked about that in class. Who was the first to accurately measure the acceleration of gravity, which is 32 feet per second per second? That is Galileo Galilei. The form of radiant energy that doesn't require a medium for travel. You need to go look in chapter or unit 3 to find that answer. What did Isaac Newton discover that explains the behavior of planets in our solar system? He came up with the radical idea of universal gravitation, that there is a force of attraction between every mass in the universe, and it acts exactly the same way throughout the universe. Who's the person that discovered and named Sirius Major? That would be Christian Huygens, and he did that in the 17th century. This is a dark shape on Mars. It's a highlands area that is volcanic in nature, and that was Huygens. How old do we estimate the Earth to be? Look in Unit 5. Find those study notes or that guide, and you can find the age of the Earth as close as we can estimate it at this point. What is the thinnest layer in the Earth? Also in Unit 5. You will see some diagrams where it shows a cutaway view of the different layers of the Earth and what they're called. We talked about this earlier in the Inner Planets slides, or in the Inner Planets lecture notes, Unit 8. There's a slide that talks about the nature of the inner planets is determined 1 by their size and 2 by the distance between them and the sun. And these two factors really influence the fact that we can have life on Earth. You need to know how lunar and solar eclipses are different. You need to be able to compare the Earth and the Moon versus, size, mass, that sort of thing. You need to know the phases of the Moon and how long it takes for that cycle to complete. You need to know why the Moon shines, because it does not emit light. How does it shine? What's going on? You need to compare spring and neap tides. And you need to know the features of the moons, like Riles and the Maria and the Highlands and that sort of thing. What natural events does the moon influence? That's going to be eclipses and tides. You need to have a really complete definition for what comets are, where they come from, what they're made out of, what they do. You need to know the order of the planets from the sun all the way to the outside. You need to know which ones have rings, which ones do not have moons, and you need to know which ones are called terrestrial, which are called Jovian, which are called inner, which are called outer, which are called gas giants, and which are called ice giants. You need to know what causes auroras. You should be thinking of magnetic fields. You need to compare the Kuiper belt and the Oort cloud, know how they're similar and how they're different. They have really different structures. Understand what each one is. If you have some really good definitions for both of those, that question should go well. And then we talked about this in class. Every planet in our solar system has been visited by a space probe. Look over the unit about telescopes. You need to know the types of telescopes. Let me change that to drawing. Types of telescopes, the characteristics of those types of telescopes, the advantages of each one, and the disadvantages of each one. And there's a question that talks about who improved the telescopes the most, or who made improvements. Basically, everyone who's used a telescope, we have multiple astronomers from Galileo on. When they first started using telescopes was when Galileo was on the scene. So scientists like Galileo and Kepler and Newton and on, William Herschel, all of these guys made improvements to telescopes. So really the key to understanding this question is knowing which astronomers occurred before and after Galileo. So if you can do that, then you can get this question right. You need to know the Martian moons, what their names are, and their order from Mars, where they orbit. One is inner and one is outer. You need to know where Ishtar Terra is and where the Caloris Basin is. And that is all of the study guide. So did I give you all the answers? No, but you can find them. Go on a hunt for finding these answers.